start with how offensive it is to say that I am a witting or unwitting asset of a foreign country, working against the interests of our people and our country, the country that I am willing to lay my life down for. So if you're saying it's not deliberately, then you are implying
it could be
that I am too stupid and too naive and lack the intelligence to know what I am doing. That is extremely offensive
can I get you to put
to
the
me
quote
and to
up?
every
you
woman
guys
of color.
Put the quote back up.
Tulsi Gabbard just walked onto The View and made it her stage. And believe me, it was one of the most uncomfortable reality TV moments you'll catch this week. Picture this, a group of hosts who usually run the conversation suddenly finding themselves completely outmatched as Tulsi calmly tore through their arguments like a chess master in a room full of checkers players. So, how did this showdown unfold? Spoiler, it wasn't pretty, but it was wildly entertaining. Grab your snacks, because this political takedown wasn't just a simple clash. It left behind bruised egos, lingering questions, and a whole lot of stunned silence.
I just want to straighten a couple of things out. I've never said, and I don't think Hillary Clinton thinks that you're a witting asset. You might be an unwitting asset. Not that that means you're stupid, but people can be used.
Well, that's exactly what it means, though. That's exactly what it means.
The other thing that confuses me, wait, I have one more question. You're on state TV all the time. Why do you go on Fox Channel, which is a propaganda network, 16 times with Tucker Carlson? I never see you with Chris Wallace or that other guy, what's his name, Brett Baer. Well, why aren't you on with them? They're definitely middle of the road. Why do you go on with Tucker, who's a liar?
Picture this, The View. A stage where 4 women with wildly clashing views gather around, passionately debating topics they barely grasp, all while acting like seasoned political analysts. The set feels less like a talk show and more like a confession booth for the loud, the dramatic, and, let's be honest, the wildly misinformed. It's the kind of place where every opinion matters, as long as it checks the right boxes. And by right, we mean anything that fits neatly into one of 2 lanes: Democrat or extra Democrat.
Also a Russian asset.
So really? I mean, this is outrageous. This is outrageous and offensive on so many levels. I've served as a member of Congress now for almost 7 years, receiving high-level national security and intelligence briefings, serving on the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Armed Services Committee, the Homeland Security Committee, working to ensure the safety and security of the people of this country. This is why I'm running for president, to continue that commitment of service. It's offensive to me as a soldier, as an American, as a member of Congress, as a veteran, and frankly, as a woman.
But then, one day, something shook up The View. Someone walked onto that set, and brace yourself, actually dared to push back against the usual script. Her name? Tulsi Gabbard. And let me tell you, this wasn't just another routine day inside The View's cozy echo chamber. No, this felt more like the start of a brand new season of Game of Thrones, where the hosts suddenly realized their usual sharp-tongued jabs were no match for a full-blown storm of reason and logic.
Because I think everyone is sort of missed something.
What are we missing?
Well, I think what you're missing is that that asset had nothing to do with Tulsi. She was talking about Jill Stein.
Actually, her spokesperson confirmed it.
I'm not making it.
They called you a Russian doll.
Her spokesperson confirmed it, because some of the media followed up and asked for her spokesperson to say what she meant, and confirmed that they were talking about me. So there was no mistaking that.
Right. Okay, well, that's clear.
For anyone wondering, wait, who exactly is Tulsi Gabbard? Let me break it down. She's the former congresswoman who basically looked at the 2-party system and said, yeah, this just isn't for me. Then, in the ultimate mic drop move, she walked away from the Democratic Party entirely. These days, Tulsi is like that one friend who refuses to play along in the group chat, couldn't care less about keeping up with the Kardashians, and definitely doesn't see The View as some kind of politically correct group therapy session.
Here's the second issue about why I go on Fox News.
Yeah.
I go on Tucker Carlson, go on Brett Baer, go on Sean Hannity, go on MSNBC, go on CNN. I am here to speak to every single American in this country about the unifying leadership that I want to bring as president. Not just speak to those who agree with me.
It's nice to think that could happen.
To speak with those who may disagree with me, recognizing that I'm asking for the opportunity to serve every single person in this country. We have to come together for our country and our country's.
When Tulsi Gabbard stepped onto the View set, the hosts probably thought they were about to chat with just another typical politician, someone who'd smile, nod, and politely stick to the script. Spoiler, Tulsi had no plans to play the polite game, and that's when things got interesting. Usually, The View feels like a giant game of whack-a-mole. Knock down one talking point, and another pops right back up. Same old arguments, same old drama. But when Tulsi arrived, it was like someone handed her a sledgehammer and said, "Go ahead, take a swing." See, The View is where political debates don't really debate. They spiral into loud, breathless shouting matches. Whoopi Goldberg, the long-reigning queen of calm and collected, probably thought she had it under control. She's been around politics long enough to know how to laugh at the absurd parts and keep her cool, right? But the moment Tulsi started talking, Whoopi's composed vibe cracked faster than a toddler losing interest at a science museum. Picture it. Whoopi, sitting there, poised and polished, while Tulsi drops fact after fact like a human Wikipedia. You could see it in Whoopi's eyes. Her brain was working overtime trying to keep up, but Tulsi was already 5 steps ahead.
It'd be very disconcerting to be in a private meeting with the president with only top people, and then a day later see it on the pages of the New York Times. Clearly, I assume you trust your fellow cabinet members and so on implicitly, but everyone has to speak to a staff about what happened and what needs to happen. And I wonder how rattling that is. People underneath you appear to be leaking even top secret information that you can go to jail for leaking. How has that affected you? And you're dealing with it with a firm hand, but how has it affected you when this happens?
The conversation was spiraling, and Whoopi was doing her best to keep things on track. But honestly, it was like she'd lost the steering wheel. Tulsi wasn't sticking to shallow political chatter. She was drilling straight into the heart of why the media and political landscape are so tangled and dysfunctional. You could practically see Whoopi's mental gears grinding as it hit her. Oh no, I might actually need to engage with what's being said here. But don't worry. Here comes Joy Behar, the master of sarcasm and queen of the dramatic eye roll. If you've ever tuned into The View, you know Joy can throw shade stronger than a solar eclipse blotting out the sun. She reigns supreme when it comes to snappy, passive-aggressive jabs. So, when Tulsi began calling out problems on both sides of the political aisle, you could practically feel Joy bracing herself to attack. And sure enough, the second Tulsi so much as nudged criticism toward the Democrats, Joy was practically out of her chair. She reached for the classic, "you're just being naive" card, trying to paint Tulsi as someone who simply didn't understand how the political game worked. But Tulsi wasn't falling for it. She fired back with sharp, unapologetic truth, calling out how the Democratic Party has become more focused on protecting the status quo than fighting for meaningful change.
Mentioned that example of that New York Times article. There were a number of things in that article that were completely inaccurate, which speaks to, again, and there is an investigation that's underway to try to figure out the source of this leak or sources of this leak around that specific incident. It makes things much harder in constantly questioning and looking over your shoulder. Okay, who's in the room? I have to be careful about everything that I say because ultimately we're in a situation where these things being leaked, either by people who are just trying to show a reporter that they're important or chasing clout of some sort, or the most dangerous of which is those who are trying to ultimately undermine the president's policies.
Joy's face was absolutely priceless, like she just realized she'd walked straight into a trap she set for herself. You could practically hear her inner voice panicking. Wait a second, weren't we just supposed to shout about Trump? Who said anything about actual solutions? It was a true showdown. The hosts of The View, who've spent years lounging comfortably in their tight little circle of certainty, had finally met their match in Tulsi Gabbard, a walking, talking reality check smashing through everything they thought they had figured out. Whoopi Goldberg, usually the unshakable queen of cool, probably assumed she could gently guide Tulsi into a safe, predictable chat. After all, what could possibly disrupt the well-oiled machine of The View's polished political theater? But Tulsi wasn't here to play by their rules. Nope. When Whoopi tried to steer the conversation back to calmer, more agreeable waters, the land where every opinion is welcome, as long as it neatly fits into the comfortable left-leaning box, Tulsi grabbed the wheel and drove straight into the storm. The look on Whoopi's face, like someone who just discovered their Wi-Fi had crashed mid-Zoom call. It was pure chaos. The moment Whoopi pressed Tulsi on her criticisms of the Democratic Party, Tulsi didn't just toss out a polite response. She unleashed like a politician fed up with the usual scripted dance. And Whoopi, she was left sitting there, utterly speechless.
got asked about Tulsi Gabbard, and the reporter, the journalist said, there are foreign allies who are very nervous about sharing intelligence with her. And he said, oh, I don't know. I'm surprised to hear it. I heard that for the first time the other day. I mean, I think she's a great American. I think she's got tremendous common sense. This woman with tremendous common sense, Tulsi Gabbard, went to Syria, met with Assad, legitimized him as a member of Congress, then came back here and advocated for him.
And oh, here came the queen of sarcasm herself, Joy Behar. Joy has built her career on that sharp, biting humor, the kind that oozes confidence only someone from the Views table could muster. But the moment she tried to throw shade at Tulsi's break from the Democratic Party, tossing out a smug little, "Oh, you switched parties? Cute. Let's see how long that lasts," Tulsi shot back like a seasoned attorney cross-examining a rattled witness. Behar, clearly caught off guard by a rebuttal that was actually grounded in facts, scrambled to cover with her usual snark. But Tulsi wasn't about to let her slide. With a calm, graceful precision, Tulsi called out Behar's hypocrisy so cleanly, you could almost hear the gears stalling in Behar's head. Tulsi wasn't there to play into the lazy, surface-level political humor that usually fills the View's airwaves. She wasn't just pointing out Joy's liberal slant, she was calling out the entire show's failure to engage in real discussion. Behar's reaction? It was basically the intellectual equivalent of throwing a tantrum and then pretending nothing ever happened. And then there was Sunny Hostin. Bless her heart. She gave it her best shot, trying to pin Tulsi down with some tough questions on foreign policy. You could practically hear Sunny's internal pep talk. "I've got her this time. This is my moment."
Tulsi Gabbard co-hosted The View, and things got spicy between Gabbard and some of the ladies on the show, especially when it came to some of the rumors that have been flying around in regard to Tulsi Gabbard and her relationship with Russia. So let's take a look at what she's upset about. So what she was referring to there were previous statements that were made by a few of the women on The View. So for instance, when the show discussed Gabbard and Clinton's comments about her recently, Sunny Hostin said, quote, "I've often said that Tulsi is sort of a Trojan horse in this. She's polling at only 1.2%, yet she's still in the race." And then
really fast on that. I don't. What does she mean by Trojan horse in that?
I don't know. I really don't know. But look,
like there are multiple people who are only at 1%.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say like 5 people are at like 1%.
But Tulsi didn't so much as blink. She didn't just respond. She took apart Sunny's line of questioning piece by piece, like a professor shredding a poorly written term paper. Sunny's reaction was priceless. You could almost see the wheels turning in her mind as she tried to process what had just happened. Tulsi wasn't just pushing back against mainstream political talking points. She was dismantling them. Facts and sharp reasoning flowed from her effortlessly, like she'd been training for this exact moment her entire life. Sunny, who likely wasn't used to facing such calm, level-headed pushback on The View, scrambled for her next move. But the damage was already done. One by one, the hosts, Whoopi, Joy, and Sunny, tried to run their usual playbook. But Tulsi hadn't come on the show to play along. She was there to peel back the curtain and reveal the entire charade, taking down each phony question with precision. The hosts were left scrambling, desperate to keep up, all while trying to pretend everything was just fine inside their cozy bubble of political comfort food. Spoiler, it wasn't, and everyone watching could see it. And it didn't stop there. Sunny, determined to recover, tried to sweep back in like a knight in shining armor, confident she had the perfect trap. She threw a foreign policy question at Tulsi, no doubt thinking, this will trip her up. Watch me land the knockout punch.
Colin, this whole thing has been nothing but good for Tulsi, and I thought she handled herself very well there.
Well, she did. She's very clearly comfortable under pressure. Maybe that has to do with her military experience, but I think these are kind of silly accusations, and I'm a little bit ashamed that the Democratic Party establishment hasn't backed her up more. She's a Russian plant because she goes on Fox News. That would make me one too.
Yeah.
I mean, we're probably all here. We're all Russian plants by that
Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg and Beto O'Rourke, all the Amy Klobuchar, these people who went on Fox. Yeah, Andrew Yang. It's insane. I thought she handled herself very well. I mean, Joy Behar is, I'm not even gonna say
no comment about Joy Behar.
Yeah,
but seriously, she has her stick. But throwing these insults and these accusations out at the Democratic presidential candidate like this with no basis is ridiculous. Yeah. And thank God Tulsi has the guts.
Well, it turns out Sunny might as well have been playing chess against someone who already had the entire game memorized. Tulsi's response wasn't just a simple, here's my opinion. It was more like a series of well-timed punches, each one landing with more force than the last. Sunny blinked, processed, and then silence. Tulsi made her look like she was reading from a script written by a 5th grader. But what really made the moment hilarious wasn't just how Tulsi embarrassed the hosts. It was how fast the dynamic on The View flipped from we're in control to wait, what just happened? It was as though they were suddenly handed a political playbook in an entirely foreign language, and all the hosts were scrambling to translate it into something they could understand. As the interview dragged on, the panic started to show. Whoopi's usually unflappable demeanor cracked a little more with each passing moment. Joy, who's usually quick with her sarcastic remarks, started firing off random jabs that felt more desperate than clever. And Sunny? She looked like she was waiting for someone to give her a script to follow. Tulsi had them backed into a corner, and it wasn't even close. This wasn't a debate. It was a masterclass in making everyone rethink everything they thought they knew about politics.
Terrible things that are happening in our country are happening because we have people in power who care more about themselves and their power than they do about the people, this country, our constitution, our democracy. They are setting this incredibly dangerous precedent that now, much like many banana republics in the world, whoever's in power has the ability to politicize and weaponize that power to go after their political opponent. Take away whatever people think about Trump or whatever. Right. The consequences and implications of what is actually happening and what so many of the Democrat elite are justifying in the name of protecting democracy is actually destroying it.
And let's not forget that truly perfect moment when Tulsi landed her final blow. It wasn't some over-the-top dramatic line, just an undeniable fact so powerful that The View couldn't recover. It was like watching a toddler stroll into a room full of adults playing Monopoly, casually knocking the board over, and then leaving without a second thought. Tulsi made it clear that no one was walking away from that conversation thinking, yeah, we showed her. The aftermath? Oh, it was glorious. The internet exploded with memes, clips, and tweets flooding social media. People were all in on Tulsi's unapologetic approach. Meanwhile, the hosts of The View were left scrambling, attempting damage control by dismissing it all as just her opinion. But you can't just act like an earthquake didn't shake the entire building when the foundations cracked wide open. Tulsi didn't need to raise her voice, use exaggerations, or turn the whole thing into a shouting match. She simply dropped facts, logic, and a few well-timed truth bombs, flipping their world upside down. In the end, it wasn't just Tulsi who came out on top. It was anyone who's ever gotten fed up with shows like The View, where the same tired political narratives are just recycled over and over.
Gabbard, in our opinion, has given a smackdown on The View.
True. We are back with Colin Rogero, Democratic strategist, and Henry Rogers, reporter for the Daily Caller. Let's start with Tulsi. So you will recall that there was a whole flap that we definitely talked about here where Hillary Clinton accused her of being a Russian asset. Ridiculous, baseless, stupid smear. Joy Behar on The View had sort of backed Hillary up and called Tulsi a useful idiot. Well, yesterday, Tulsi was on The View and had...
The next time Tulsi Gabbard graces a talk show, let's hope she brings the same fierce energy, because honestly, watching a political discussion disrupted by a dose of real talk, that's the kind of TV we need more of. Tulsi walked off The View like she'd just dropped a mic on stage, leaving the audience breathless. It was clear that this wasn't just a casual appearance, it was a statement. She didn't just ride out the chaos, she took control of it. Post-show, Tulsi's reputation, it's shining. She's become the political figure everyone can't stop debating. Meanwhile, The View? Back to its usual partisan shouting match, retreating to the comfort of its echo chamber, where challenging opinions aren't welcome. But here's the thing, Tulsi's appearance made a lasting impact. That mark she left? It's one that will make people, whether they admit it or not, rethink the way they've been playing the game. The View will carry on as usual, but that uncomfortable, undeniable truth Tulsi dropped, that's going to linger for a long time. She's not following their rules.